welcome back. My name's Dan. Today we're going to be doing a quick tutorial around the Logic Sampler. Okay, it's not going to be super detailed. I'm not going to be telling you everything that goes on. It's a really powerful tool, and yeah, these are only quick beginner guides. So let's get to it. So we need to add a drum sampler, sorry, not a drum sampler, just a sampler in general. So the sampler in Logic is called the EXS24. Okay, hit the plus here. It's a software instrument, so we highlight software instrument, we go to the drop down menu, look for EXS24 Sampler, click that, and then we click create. Okay, that gives us our sampler instrument. Right, so with the arm button press here, we can straight away start to sort of play some sounds from our sampler. So right now it gives us a default sine wave, you know, nothing too exciting. What we want to do is put our own sounds into this sampler. Okay, so to do that, you want to go to the left here. First of all, I'm going to name it sampler. Like you see, I've highlighted the track. You can see down here, this is our track on the left. It says EXS24 in blue. We go to the middle and we double click. It brings us up the front panel of our sampler. Okay, there's a lot going on here in this sampler. If you know a bit of basics about synthesis, this may make sense to you. There's a filter here, there's some envelopes down here. If not, don't worry, we're not going to pay much attention to this front window just today. Okay, so what I want to show you guys is how to drop your own sounds in and then play them back over your drum loop or track or whatever it is you've got going. So to put sounds in, this is an empty factory default sampler with no sounds. You can see that by this representative here. If there was a preset loaded, it would have a name or something in there. So what we're going to do is put our own sounds in. So we're going to go to the edit window. So this brings up this window here. So this is our sampler edit window. This is where we can drop our own sounds in. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little bit of a drum sampler using some drum samples that I have on my computer. So let me just go to drums. Find something we can use. Drum kits. Here we go. So maybe I'll just put a load of hi-hats in there. So I'm going to select a bunch of different hats, drag and drop them into the edit window there. Here we go. So you can select multiple files and throw them in at once. It's going to give you this window then. Adding 5 samples. Please choose how to build the map. So contingent zones is sort of what you usually use. Okay, so here we've got 3 options. Auto map by reading the root key from the audio file. So if you've got things with pitch, you may want to use that. It'll set them out on the correct keys depending on what the pitch of the sound is. We're not going to use that. So drums without range, zone without range, root key from audio file. So I'm guessing that's going to be more for drums, which is kind of what we're using. But what I mostly like to use is this contingent zones. What it's going to do is just going to split your sounds across keys and give them their own individual keys. Right, so you press OK there. And now you can see we have our 5 sounds in. When I click each of the sounds, you can see little blue square lights up down here. So that there means that this sound is on key C1. So if I click C1, we can hear this hat. If I click C2, we hear a different sound. You can see the highlight has moved down onto the second sound, and so on. Right guys, so what's happening is these are distorting a lot, and you might find that that's going to happen quite a bit. This is down to the sample rate. Okay, so what you need to do if this happens is you need to grab your audio files, drop them into your arrangement view, use existing tracks. Okay, let's just wait for this. There we are. So now basically the audio from my Finder is at a different sample rate to the project file and the sample rate of the sampler instrument itself. So I don't want to confuse you too much, but if you throw your sounds into your sampler and they're distorting like mine just were, what you want to do is throw them into your session view. That's going to convert the audio into the correct sample rate for the project and the sampler. Then you bring your sampler back up. If it loads, sampler back up, back into your edit view. And then what you can do is just grab your files from the session view or the arrangement view and just drop them in. Again, same contiguous zones like we did before. Right, and now let's see if they're distorting. There we go. So nice hi-hats. They're not distorting. Good thing that happened, really, because it does happen a lot with sample rates throwing sounds into the sampler off your computer. So just be aware. Yeah, to get around it, throw them into the arrangement view first and then throw them into the sampler, and you won't get any of that distorting. All right, guys. So here we go. So I've got my sounds in my sampler. Okay. Now let's see what we can do. I don't need to worry about too much of this up here. There's a couple of things I will explain to you. So the key range for one, key range from C1 to C1 on this first hi-hat. As you can see, C1 to C1, it's on the C1 key, right? If I was to lower this, you would see the blue extend out, and then we would get that hit over a bunch of different keys. Yeah, so from there would be from, so there we go, from C0 to C1. And if you notice, when you stretch the sound across multiple keys, you get pitch difference. So that can be handy. You know, you can get creative with that. You can use that in all sorts of different ways. But obviously, when it's on a single key, it's just going to give us the original pitch, okay? That pitch is determined by the key here. So if you want to actually lower the pitch, you can change the key of the said sound and it'll play at a lower pitch. So the key ranges, you know, you can get creative with the key range. Let's say you want like 3 different sounds just to happen on one key. You can obviously, you could layer sounds like this. And there we go. Now we're getting 3 hi-hats on one button. You know, so you can get quite creative with how you set up your arrangement of sounds in the sampler. I'll leave that to you, but yeah, just a note, you can do a variety of things, you know, layering sounds or overlapping sounds between keys, stuff like that. So anyway, right now I just want single hit per key, so that's what I've done. Okay, let's continue. Let's have a look at it. So the key range, that's good to know about. Some of the playback stuff is really good to know about as well. Okay, so we're looking here now, all right, guys. Pitch, with pitch on, as we just demonstrated, if I drag this out, we get a variety of pitches across where the sound is set on the keyboard. Okay, so if I turn pitch off, then I'm going to get the same pitch across all these keys now. Yeah, so pitch may or may not be handy for you in some instances. So, you know, sometimes you don't want the pitch to change. If it's a vocal sample that's in key or something like that, you don't want the pitch to change, so you turn the pitch off. Okay, one shot is if I had a long sample in here. There you go, so that plays the entire sample. Okay, one shot. When one shot is on, it will play the entire sample. If I have one shot off, for example, as soon as I let go of that key, the sample stops. You know, so if you're doing some sort of choppy kind of hip hop thing, you might want to turn your one shots off, and then you can. So if that was a vocal sample, you know, it'd be more cutting in and out of the vocal, you know. So let's just throw a vocal in actually, and you can see that going. So if I go to find it, go to samples, let's go to vocal. Let's find a vocal. These could be quite annoying. Let's find a longer vocal. Okay, so very annoying, but it's going to demonstrate what I'm trying to explain. Let's put that in there. So there we go. So this now I've dropped it in and it's come across the entire key range. So if I click down here, yeah, because pitch is on, we're getting a very low note there. So the more we come up, And you can see if I hit these ones, it's going to play my hi-hat as well because it's layered. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this vocal on C2. So let's change this from C2. I've got 2 selected right now, but that's all right. Yeah, so C2 to C3, let's say. So you can manually type these in as well if you want to. C3. Here we go. So now we get our vocal. Okay, and you can hear that it's quite low down in pitch. So what we need to do is we need to change the key value to C2. So let's go back here, go to pitch. So it's on C3 now, so that's why at C2 we're getting quite low. So let's go to C2. Actually, it's just manual, put that in. C2. Now when I play, so that's the original volume. Yeah, so that's the original pitch. Okay, we're on C2, we've set the key to C2. Right, so now as we go up, it's going to get higher because our pitch is pressed down. So yeah, back to one shot. Okay, with one shot pressed, if I hit the button, it's going to play the entire sample out. Yeah, so with one shot unpressed or unticked, it's just going to give me clips. Yeah, so then obviously if I'm in my track, you know, you might be doing a hip hop track. You can then add sort of more glitchy vocals in with the keyboard, just with stabs, rather than one shot, which is going to play the entire sample. Okay, so then you have reverse. If I just click that on demonstrate, so then we just get the same sample in reverse. It's pretty self-explanatory. Okay, so you have quite a bit of control over the pitches and how the sample actually acts within the sampler when you press in your keys, or within this edit window here, right? So there's quite a lot of information there, guys, but really what you're doing is you're just dragging and dropping, and then you can use some of these various parameters to sort of control how your sound acts within the sampler. Okay, so that's the edit window. When you go to close the edit window, it's always going to ask you if you want to save your drum sampler. So if you've just spent an hour or 2 hours putting in drum samples, vocal samples, and they all work really nice, then you definitely want to be saving this, okay? So what you can do is you can go to instrument, and you can go to save or save as, depending on whether you've saved it before. Yeah, and make sure you save your instruments, okay? Then when you save your instruments, so let me just save this, for example. Yeah, so sampler instrument, I've got a folder called sampler instruments with my other sampler instruments lie. I'm just going to call this demo instrument. So there you go. So I press save. Now that has saved my instrument here. If you can see there, it says demo instrument. All right, guys. And then every time you throw in a sampler now, if I go to plus, and I go software instrument sampler create. Yeah, and then I go to my sampler instruments. I can see my demo instrument is right here on the side in the library. Okay, so that's handy, guys. You can build instruments, vocal samplers, and then you can load them back in at a later date or in a different project file, which is really handy. Okay, so yeah, my advice is to build as many sampler instruments as you can, and then you'll just have more ammo down the line. So let's just see the sampler instrument actually doing something. Let's get rid of all these. Okay, so we've got 2 instruments. I can get rid of this one as well. So this is just a drum loop, guys, okay? Yeah, just straight out of the Apple loops, chucked it in just to demonstrate. So now I'm going to play some hits with my sampler over the top of this. So now I'm on C3, which is where we set our vocal to. Yeah, and as I play, I can so you can add bits in and so on. You know, if you hit the record button, you can just record that in. It turns it into a MIDI file. You know, it's quite basic, but you know, that is the sampler working in a nutshell. Really, that's it, guys. You know, so once you put your sounds in, go to the edit window, you drop your sounds in, you set your different parameters of how you want the sound to act within the sampler, Then you close it down, save your sampler instrument, and then you can start to load it up in other projects, or the same project again. And yeah, you start recording in your MIDI then. Okay, so that's the sampler instrument, guys. I'll show you one other quick thing that's really handy. So let's say you've got a drum loop like this, and you want to chop this up and put it into a sampler, right? There's an easy way to do it. You right click the region, you go down to convert, and you get an option to convert to new sampler track. So you click that. That's going to give you some options then. Okay, so it says create zones from regions. So we don't want to create a zone from regions because we only have the one region. So transient markers are basically the start of each hit in your loop. So a transient is where the waveform goes from nothing and then to basically something. So Logic's really good at finding transients and auto reading transients. So what it'll do is if you click transient markers, it'll auto read where the sounds are, and it'll make cuts, and then it'll put them across the keyboard in a sampler instrument. So this is a really, really handy tool. If you've got a vocal in your track and you want to quickly chop it up and rearrange it, this is how you do it. So right click, convert regions to sampler track, and then you want transient markers. Okay, you can set your key range here if you want to. If you've got specific keys you'd like it to be on, you can also name it there. So then you press OK. What it's going to do is give me a sampler instrument underneath containing all of my samples. So now if I press Command and K, yeah, so if I run across the keys, I'm getting my different hits. Yeah, so then what I can do is I can just delete this. What it does, guys, it automatically mutes your original audio. So if you want to unmute that, you just grab it, press Control and M. So that's the loop playing. Now if I arm this track and play some keys, I'm just adding in extra snares, guys, you can hear. If I hit record, yeah, so I've added extra snares there. Alternatively, you could mute this first track and just literally start playing your beat in from scratch. So you might get this sort. Yeah. So, I mean, random, but yeah, now I've got all of this bit of loop in a sampler instrument. Okay, so there's two ways there to fill up different sampler instruments. Hopefully that helps you on your way. And yeah, good luck. See you on the next vid.